we've talked about candidates, and you had sent me an email about Herschel Walker saying how we believe in forgiveness, and he's admitted he has personality disorders and all that. But it gets back to a point, which is my question. Do you really think if someone has a personality disorder, which they admit, that they are qualified to run for the Senate? I mean, that is a disability. I mean, by that stretch, do you think somebody with Down syndrome? Do you think somebody with autism should they be allowed to run for the Senate? And the second thing is, that's point number one. Or point number two is, do you believe that someone should at least try to prepare for the job and try to expose them to the public, to do debates, to try to learn the issues? Herschel Walker has done none of that, and yet you're still supporting him.
Well, I reject any notion that someone who has been to treatment and is managing their mental illness should not seek public office. I completely reject that. I think
he says he still has it.
But it's treated. That's the difference. If you're getting treatment, if you're getting counseling, if you're getting medication, he wrote an entire book about his struggle and his treatment of it. And so he's not committing violence. He admitted the violence against his wife was due to that. And people who have untreated mental illness, they need treatment. And so the fact that the U.S. Army, I sent you a profile of Herschel Walker written by our U.S. Army, the federal U.S. Army, profiling his journey and his ability to treat that mental illness, then I think you should be able to run. George W. Bush, he went to rehab because he had an alcohol problem. That was an addiction. People can, and that's a type of, stems in very often from mental illness. The fact that you're having an addiction, that can be treated. And if you have autism, there's so many people in Silicon Valley who have autism. They're high functioning autism. So I think it should be about the candidate. And then as far as the debates, I think what the RNC did was right to pull out from the debate commission for their GOP nominating process, because it became so unfair. If you look at how Candy Crowley treated Mitt Romney, she was totally wrong and he was right. And she kept pushing and pushing. And finally, he's a gentleman. So he was like, okay, fine. But it made him look like he was wrong. And it was a disgrace. And so it happens. All these moderators are so biased. And so I think if Herschel Walker believes that the process is rigged and unfair and not going to treat him fairly, then I think it might make sense. But I do agree he should hold town halls. He should be answering questions. I agree with that.
Well, first of all, George W. Bush didn't go to rehab. He stopped drinking at the age of 40 on his own. And secondly, Herschel Walker has been accused of acts of violence since he's had his treatment. So that is his supposed treatment, or what he says is his treatment. There have been incidences of violence. There have been instances of, lying about assets, about not paying loans, just really dishonest behavior. So I haven't seen any evidence that his apparent treatment has cured that.
Well, as you and I both know, people like to make up accusations in politics quite a bit.
Well, but the bottom line is there's no indication that any of the behavioral issues that he had before have changed since his alleged treatment. That's the bottom line.
Well, okay? Are you a doctor?
Are
you his therapist?
I'm just based on when he had the treatment and based on when he did it. But the as far as the debates go, if you have to go back to 2012 to find an example,
that's just one example.
Hold on, of media bias. That shows that you have to dig pretty deep. I think overall
it happened in 2020 and 2016 too.
The debates have been pretty fair, and I think again people will certainly acknowledge that Donald Trump did himself in the 2020 debates, and that Kristen Welker was incredibly fair, and Trump even went up after the debate and thanked her for what he said was a very impartial, fair job. So. That argument doesn't wash either. But the bottom line is, it's this idea of I'm glad you're acknowledging that he should at least make public appearances, because if someone's running for office, and particularly when you're as ignorant as he is, he's made no effort to learn anything about the issues. As I said, he said that John Lewis was the greatest black senator ever, when we all know he's a congressman. I mean, that is an incredibly ignorant thing to say. So I just think he's highly unqualified, and he's dangerous in terms of his behavior. But people love him in Georgia, so he's going to get the nomination. I think it'll be a very close race. I think he'll implode and Warnock will win, but people in Georgia love him.
We'll see. Well, Dave, I mentioned the 2012 example for you specifically because I knew my audience, because I knew you like Mitt Romney, but because I could say the 16 in 2020, but you won't agree with me. I thought that Chris Wallace did a terrible job in 2020. He was so biased. It was 2-on-1. He was helping him. He was doing everything he could to help Joe Biden, just as the whole press was trying to do everything they could to help circle crop
again,
Joe Biden.
Chris Wallace was he was accused of being biased towards Trump in the 2016 debates. So I think he's a very impartial guy. But again, the second debate, which was the more instructive one, because Trump really self-destructed in the first one when he, told the Oath Keepers to stand tall and stand proud, and he wouldn't disavow a lot of things. It was the second debate with Kristen Welker where he thought it was very impartial. So, but anyway, we'll maybe just agree to disagree on that one. Well, another robust, but as always, respectful debate. Carrie, it's always a pleasure. This has been another episode of Practically Political. I'm Dave Spencer.
And I'm Carrie Sheffield. We'll see you next time.
Excellent.